Hello, and welcome to Package Management and E-commerce Portal for the Haystack community. I am Steve Einan, and for those of you who don't know me, I am the main developer behind the Stackhub website, and as such, today's talk will be centered around Stackhub. Today we will be going over some Stackhub basics, what distribution channels are, how to use Stackhub for marketing and branding, and yes, the most exciting part that you've all been waiting for, how you too can become a vendor on Stackhub and sell your products. For this, we're going to be going through some example scenarios using some fictional companies, and one of which I hope you'll be able to relate to. So let me introduce Global Core. As the name suggests, Global Core are a very large organisation, and they are into building analytics. As such, they've got about 1,000 buildings and a number of employees, but Colin and Peter are the guys we'll be talking about today. And then on the other end of the scale, there is Tim of TimTech. Tim is also into building analytics, but he's just a local guy in the UK just starting out, so he's got about 6 buildings. But most important of all, there is me. Now let's say I work for a fictional company called Alien Factory, and I'm just a technical guy, say a software developer. But first we're going to look at some Stackhub basics and see what packages are, and then we're going to have a look at some of the simple SkySpark integration that's out there. For this, we're going to go back to Tim of TimTech. He wants an estimate of weather in his immediate location. So he gets a webcam, he points it to the sky, grabs some cloud recognition software and slaps the two together. And before long, he's getting readings of the number of clouds in the sky per hour. And it all looks good. Except that the cloud recognition software isn't that good and he gets an occasional dodgy value. But hey, it's not really an issue, for they can always be ignored. But the problem here is that to ignore the values, he first needs to identify them. Now Tim's bright, and he figures that some standard deviation calculations should tell him which values are dodgy and which are okay. Only Tim isn't really a programmer, and performing standard deviation statistical analysis sounds pretty hard. So he wonders if Stackhub can help. So Tim goes to the Stackhub website and he types standard deviation into the search box. And in the search results at the bottom, he sees a package called Data Quality Extension. Look for missing or strange values in your data, it says. Tim's intrigued, this could be what he wants. So he clicks through. And he finds that it is a phantom pod of axon functions. And slap bang there at the top of the page, he sees a function called Find Outliers, with a description of Find Outliers based on standard deviation. Wow, sounds like just the sort of thing Tim was looking for, but can he use it? At the bottom of the page is a description. It says, this package is public. It is visible to and may be downloaded by anyone. Anyone includes Tim, so Tim's really happy. This is just what he's been looking for. He needs to download this and use it in his SkySpark project. Downloading and installing a package onto SkySpark is something many of you have done already, so I'll just cover it quickly. We go to the install manager and find the package we wish to install. From here, a quick search for standard deviation again should bring up our data quality extension. Clicking the install button will download and install the package into our SkySpark installation. Next we need to enable the package. So we go to our project settings, to the extensions tab, find the data quality and click enable. It should now be ready for use in our project. And to check, when we go over to our Axon editor, we should find our new outliers functions nestled in amongst all the others. So that was an example of installing a package of Axon functions, but packages on Stackhub don't have to be Axon functions or even SkySpark related. They could be Niagara AX modules or other general code for protocol implementations. But they don't even have to be code, they could just be data. They could be collections of graphics, equipment profiles or degree day values. In fact, if you have a collection of files with a common interest, they could be bundled up as a package and distributed on Stackhub. But that said, I do acknowledge that currently most packages on Stackhub are phantom pods of Axon scripts, but I believe that's mainly due to the aforementioned SkySpark integration. I am keen to note here that Project Haystack is a community. It was brought about because we all face similar problems and hence we all need similar solutions. The more we share on Stackhub, then the more we all benefit from these collaborative solutions. And that's what the core of Stackhub is all about. Sharing public packages centered around Project Haystack, and it's something that we shouldn't lose sight of. That said, sometimes you want to keep things private. Sometimes it's not convenient to share your work with everybody under the sun. So let's have a quick look at how Stackhub can help. So we go back to Tim and his cloud counter. It turns out he's getting more dodgy values than he can handle, and he realizes that all this programming is out of his league. He needs a proper programmer, or a genius. So he comes to me, and he says, "Steve, can you write me a proper cloud counter?" And I say, "Of course I can, Tim, don't you worry." So I write one over the weekend in my spare time, and I email it to Tim to try out. And Tim's like, "Wow, it's amazing! It, just works." Thanks, Tim. Now, I also know Colin of Global Core, so I email a copy to him also, and Colin's like, "Dude, that's great!" "Actually, Steve," he says, "I want to do some proper testing with it, and try it for real on some of my buildings." "That's cool," I say, "go right ahead." But now it starts to get a bit messy. Because I only emailed the cloud counter to Colin, it means he now has to manually copy it over to each individual SkySpark installation he wants to try it on. And that's just tedious. So how can Stackhub help? Now, before we go further, I just want to say that this is where Stackhub begins to diverge from traditional package managers. Most package managers, like NPM for Node or RubyGems or NuGet for C# and Eggbox and such like, they're mostly centered around the individual, as in, I log in, I upload, I download the package. It's all very me. But Stackhub is a little bit different. It's more organization-centric. Sure, I log in as myself an individual, but once there, I attach myself to an organization, and it's the organization that uploads, and it's the organization that downloads packages. Everything I do is on behalf of the organization. So now let's see how this helps me of Alien Factory to distribute Cloud Counter. If I were to simply upload Cloud Counter to Stackhub as a public package, then anybody could download it. But given I'm just doing alpha testing, I don't really want to put it on general release just yet. So I pay Stackhub the price for a few beers, and I create a private distribution channel for Cloud Counter. And to this private distribution channel, I add the organizations TimTech and Global Core. And now Tim can download Cloud Counter from Stackhub, either manually or through the SkySpark installation manager. And so can Colin of Global Core. And so can Peter, because Peter's also in Global Core, and so can anyone else attached to the Global Core organization, including all the building engineers. But note that no one else can, because only TimTech and Global Core have been added to my private distribution channel. Now it turns out this cloud counter of mine is amazing, everybody loves it. I start to think to myself, maybe companies will pay money for this. So I decide to sell Cloud Counter. But to do so, I need to promote and advertise it. So let's see how Stackhub can help. So I create a Cloud Counter product on Stackhub, but I also need a way to market it. So I, as Alien Factory, create a product page on Stackhub. Here's one I produced earlier. It's extremely customizable and lets me put my branding all over it. Also note the URL. It is /alienfactory/cloudcounter. It's a human-friendly URL that I have control over, which is very important in today's world of SEO. Also, note that product pages are publicly available and they appear in the Stackhub search results. Serious vendors will also want an organization page that just promotes themselves. Here's one for Alien Factory. Again, they're customizable and it lets me put my branding all over it. Organization pages also let you promote multiple packages and products, which is handy for when I write more software. But the best thing about product and organization pages is that they come complete with these bad boy buy buttons at the bottom here. These appear automatically because Alien Factory has a public product called Cloud Counter. If a customer clicks it, they're then asked to enter some credit card details to complete the transaction. Now this is a very important point, because it means that Stackhub is taking payment on my behalf, making it a true e-commerce website. Now it's also worth mentioning that Stackhub uses Stripe for secure payment processing, which in itself is a great service. But it means that for me as Alien Factory to receive funds from sales on Stackhub, I too need a Stripe account. But it's easy to set up, and once done, you can easily search and view payments, move funds to your real bank account, and issue customer refunds. And Stripe has an intuitive and easy to use website for doing all of this. Selling on Stackhub is intrinsically linked to licenses, and they're very flexible. Note that changing your licensing strategy also affects your pricing strategy, as we'll see in the next few examples. Now, Stackhub does not restrict the Cloud Counter package from being downloaded. Even though I have a Cloud Counter product, anyone can still download the Cloud Counter package, and why not? In this day and age of emails, USB sticks and file sharing, anyone can get a hold of your software if they look hard enough. So what does Stackhub do? It can do this. It can grant customers access to a securely signed license file. Now, it's just a simple properties file of name-value pairs. Note the signature at the bottom that is generated by industry standard public-private key encryption, so only Stackhub can generate the license file, but anyone can verify that it's real and that the contents are valid. So when Cloud Counter starts, it can check that the license file exists, and that is valid, and if not, throw an error and disable itself. Now, looking at the organization in the license file, you can see that it's being bought by Global Core. So at first I'm thinking, I've made a sale, whoop 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 whoop, yeah, I'm a vendor on Stackhub, I'm a big deal. See, I'm all excited, but then I realize I have a problem, and that problem is Tim. Because I happen to know that Tim is best friends with Colin of Global Core, so he's just going to phone up and go, hey Colin, can you email me over that Cloud Counter license? Because I want to use it on my 6 buildings. And Colin's just going to go, yeah, sure dude, here it is, I'll email it over to you now. So Tim's going to be all happy because he's got a free license. Colin's ambivalent, doesn't matter either way. But I'm unhappy. I'm unhappy because I've just lost out a potential sale. So what can Stackhub do about this? It can do this, the SkySpark Organization ID. When a customer buys Cloud Counter, I can optionally force them to enter their SkySpark Organization ID. That then becomes part of their license file. SkySpark checks this value against the value in its license file and disables Cloud Counter if they're different in any way. That means that Stackhub licenses can be tied to specific organizations. That means that this license is tied to Global Core. That means that Colin can use the license because Colin is part of Global Core. That also means that if Colin emails a license to Tim of TimTech, Tim can't use it. But Peter can, because Peter is also part of Global Core. In fact, anyone in Global Core can use this license because this license is tied to the organization. Let's call this an organization-wide license. And now that Tim has to buy his own license, I've made 2 sales. So at $10,000 each, I'm happy because Alien Factory has just made a cool $20,000 profit. And it works out good for Global Core too. Because they've got about 1,000 buildings, that works out to about $10 each. But this cripples poor Tim of TimTech, because Tim's only got 6 buildings, and now each building costs him over $1,500 each. So what else can Stackhub do? In a similar vein to entering a SkySpark Organization ID, I can also optionally force customers to enter their SkySpark License ID. So when SkySpark starts up, it checks this license ID against its own license number. And if they are different in any way, again, it disables the Cloud Counter. This process then ties the license to a specific SkySpark installation. Now let's look at our sales again. Note that if I'm now selling SkySpark installation licenses, I need to adjust the cost of Cloud Counter to just $10 each. Now for Global Core, this doesn't make much of a difference, because each of their buildings is still going to cost them $10. Tim of TimTech, well, he's really happy now, because he's only got 6 buildings, that's only going to cost him $60. But me at Alien Factory, not so. I mean, at the start I was making a cool $20,000 profit, and now I'm barely making half of that. So, what else can I do? So I start to really think about my customers, and I start to think about specifically where their buildings are. Now Global Core being global, well, they can buy buildings wherever they want, so they tend to buy them in the sunny places where there's not many clouds, like here in Florida. But Tim of TimTech, well, He's local and he's in the UK, and there is always raining and it's always overcast, and so he's got to count so many clouds 24/7 on a building by building basis. Tim is counting a lot more clouds than Global Core. So what else can Stackhub do then? In Stackhub, you can not only sell packages, but bundles of points, and it's very flexible. Now what a point is, and how it is used, is entirely up to you and your package to decide. A point could be a number of imported data values, a number of server hours, or number of computations. It's entirely up to you to decide. And for me, well, when it comes to Cloud Counter, I'm going to sell packages of clouds. That is, a cap on the maximum number of clouds each license can count. Looking at the sales again, if I were to sell capacity-based licenses, then I'll probably sell a package of, say, 1,000 clouds for $100. Now for Global Core, there's not much change there, because they're still going to cough up a cool £10,000 for a large package. TimTech though, building by building, he's got to count a lot more clouds, so he's going to be pennying up $1,000 for 10,000 clouds. That means that here in Alien Factory, I'm making a nice $11,000 profit. Okay, so it's not as much as the original 20,000, but hey, it's probably enough for now. The important point is that licenses are flexible, and there are many built-in licensing strategies. As to which strategy is suitable for you is wholly dependent on you, your product, and your customers. As for Alien Factory selling Cloud Counter to Global Core and TimTech, I'm probably going to sell capacity-based licenses. But why stop there? There are other ways to restrict the use of your packages. Nothing lasts forever, and your licenses don't have to either. All licenses may optionally expire after a certain number of days. More often than not, you're probably going to set this to about 1 year in the future, and force your customers to renew their license on an annual basis. So not wanting to restrict your restrictions, each license file may be customized, allowing you, the vendor, to add your own name-value pairs. So if you don't want to utilize any of the built-in licensing options, you can always invent your own. Simply put the details into the license file and have your package validate it in any way it sees fit. Allowing you to do whatever you like with license files pretty much concludes this section on licenses. And it also concludes this presentation, for we've looked at a lot. We've looked at public packages, and how to make them private and distribute them through private distribution channels, how to create products in Stackhub, and how to market them through customizable product and organization pages. And we've looked at the various built-in Stackhub licensing strategies and how they may affect your pricing model. Now, I've said quite a lot, so if you only take one thing away from the presentation, I hope it is this: that Stackhub allows you to sell your ideas and your products, and that it is embraced by SkySpark. And that wraps it up from Colin of Global Core, Tim of TimTech, and me. I am Steve Einen, and this has been Package Management and E-commerce Portal for the Haystack community. Thank you, and good night.